Intrigue Media. Get noticed, get found.
So this morning we'll be talking about brand development 101. This is our friend Harold. You'll get to know Harold fairly well. Do you want to move forward? I feel like I'm hiding you and you're avoiding the camera. It's definitely the case. This is our pal Harold. So the reason why we want to do Brand Development 101 today is to provide clarity to the team of what a brand is. I feel like a lot of times, we're like, oh, let's build a brand for them. And so we think that it's a logo, when really, it could be something a little bit different. So providing clarity to the team so that we can provide clarity to our clients as well. Awesome. So like I was kind of mentioning, how do we help our clients with brand development? A lot of times we figure that it's a logo, and it typically is a logo, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. Branding can be, characteristics that you build out for a company that can live through, print or online or even video advertising. So a good example of that, we have a client, RLB. I'm sure you guys are familiar with RLB. With their campaign, we decided to go with just strictly branding on the TVs, no messaging at all, just pushing their brand on the TVs. So we did a 10-second slot in 2 different spots on the network, and it is just their logo and their tagline.
Just to clarify, when you say 2 different spots on the network, you mean like 2 of these would play within a 22-minute slot?
You got it.
Yeah.
So because they're 10 seconds, we break that into... And that's it. That is the pure, simple RLB way. So another way that we can shine light on the characteristics of the brand to a client so that they can understand, what do you mean by that? What do you, tell me more about what kind of characteristics you're explaining to someone, is by building a branding guide. It's kind of like a visual aid to personify a brand so that people can see their new logo or their new colors or their new font or whatever it might be in a living space. So that might be like when you build the logo, putting the logo onto business cards or putting it on the side of a building so that they can see it and they can visualize it and feel it and have a great kind of warm, fuzzy feel. So this is a video that Pentagram put together for MIT Lab, and they, I think we'll need to turn the audio on. And they had like a bunch of back and forth with their brand and the MIT Lab, and trying to find something that would work well for them. So they decided to make like a short little motion graphics video to kind of explain how they see it living and how they see it moving, and this is it. Cool. So when I first saw that logo, that's not even close to how I would have imagined it moving and feeling and looking. So that's awesome insight to see from those people.
So what do we do in a branding session? Basically, the point of it is to understand what problem they're having currently, whether it is with their logo or the way that their brand is viewed publicly. And what they like and dislike are really equally important in getting to the root of this. And one of the reasons, or one of the ways we do that is we play the logo game with them. I'm sure you guys have seen us walking around with the box going into meetings. So it has a bunch of different companies' logos in there, and we sort of place it on a spectrum of what's close to what the brand's going to look like at the end of it and what's farther away. And that's sort of how we gauge what the final product will look like. And while we're doing that, there's a lot of why and why and why and why and why for everything that they tell us. So it can get to be a little bit much, but...
Cool, so has anyone here seen Animaniacs?
Yes.
Is everyone familiar with Mindy from Animaniacs? So sometimes when we play the logo game, we're asking so much why that kind of the client shows a lot of frustration.
Come, Mindy, it's time for us to conquer the world. By right of superior intelligence, I am best suited to guide the destiny of this planet. My imperial powers give me the mandate. Because it's something I want to do.
So that's typically how our sessions go every time, is Mindy just telling us, asking us why, and them telling us just because it's something they want to do.
Yeah, so after all of that, what we get to in a branding session is understanding how they're going to use the brand and what messages they want to communicate with it, and all of the why sort of leads up to that, and that'll translate over to how it's going to look visually in the end.
Harold looks so calm in this picture. Cool, so what do we get from that? There's definitely a lot of frustration, but it's a good frustration. It's to the point where the client's like, you know, can't you just understand that custom means a custom logo, and we have no idea what they're trying to talk about. So it's really good, and at the end of it, they see a lot of value in it, and we get a lot of value from it. And as I'd kind of mentioned before too, clarity from wishy-washy words. Simple to me might not be simple to someone else. Unique is one we get a lot, is a unique, make me a unique logo, or make me a custom logo, or a vintage logo. And I could maybe guess, but it's not quite the same to someone else, which a vintage logo might be, you know, are you talking about like an old script font, or are you talking about a new age hipster looking logo? Like, I have no idea what you mean. So creating clarity behind that is, it's awesome. It also turns subjective opinions into objective strategy. So if we were to, you know, get some clarity on some wishy-washy words, we're starting to find out why they want to do what they want to do, and what some of their goals are, so that when we come back to them with a logo, we're not just presenting something that we think is pretty, we are presenting something that we think will work for them. And there's a purpose behind it too, and then there will be more transparency in that purpose when we build them a logo. Understanding the messages they'd like to communicate tells us what colors, shapes, and characteristics will suit the brand. Not all shapes, not all colors will work well for a brand, and not all imagery as well too. So understanding the messages that they'd like to communicate, not only through text but through visual aid as well, will make a big difference.
So in the end, what's going to make a brand successful is essentially three things: commitment, versatility, and the fact that it's recognizable. So to just sort of elaborate on that a little bit, with commitment, logos, like, they need to have a long life. You can't be changing it all the time. You can't be constantly rebranding. And they're not there to like make a big splash. They're there to last and to represent you over a long period of time. So it's not like a diving competition. It's more of a swimming competition. It takes time, and it needs to have endurance. It also needs to be versatile, so it can adapt to different forms over time. Like, the Google logo has changed quite a bit from its original, but it's still inherently Google. Like, it hasn't really changed that much. It's more the font than anything else. And on top of that, it needs to be physically versatile, so we need to be able to use it like in a lot of real different spaces, like in grayscale or on embroidery and things like that. And then finally, for it to be recognizable, it has to be obvious what the company does and who they are, and it has to appeal to the audience that they're targeting in that industry. One brand recently that sort of changed their look was Best Western, and we kind of saw that, and I know I showed it to a couple different people.
So it's just like a classic example of, you know, something that might not have taken the best practices. For me, it kind of looks like the Pillsbury logo, or like they might bake bread or something like that. It clearly wasn't made in black and white first because there are a bunch of effects on it, which is like this, I feel like could slowly change and adapt over time. So for example, like the Google logo, it being versatile, like, you know, when it's a special day, you'll see someone make a drawing of it that is a little bit different, but you can still see the word Google in it, or they can adapt it a little bit and it's still Google. Whereas, you know, this in black and white, you'd lose the inner shadow, the drop shadow, the outer glow, all of these effects, right? So it's maybe a step in the wrong direction, but hopefully you guys can...
It's really their new logo.
Dead serious, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So like the same people who did Yahoo's new logo?
No idea. It's someone's niece or nephew.
Always someone's niece. So yeah, the main thing with that, like, it is important to stay objective because what you think is best isn't always what's best for the client. But at the end of the day, you want to have something that's going to fulfill these three categories and really just be a successful brand for them going into the future.
So funny.
I think he's looking at Alex.
Definitely. I'm just gonna back slowly over.
That was great, guys.
Intrigue Media. Get noticed, get found.